Hello and welcome to the first episode of Circulating Conversations, where we discuss library topics, genre deep dives, and book recommendations. I'm your host, Rachel, an Adult Services Librarian, and this is my guest.
My name is Robert, and I am also an Adult Services Librarian.
Thank you for joining us, Robert. So today we're going to talk about ChatGPT and its effect on libraries. So first we want to define what AI is. So according to the 2023 article by McKinsey & Co., AI is a machine's ability to perform the cognitive functions we associate with human minds, such as perceiving, reasoning, learning, interacting with an environment, problem solving, and even exercising creativity.
Yeah, when it comes to artificial intelligence and AI, a lot of people have this image in their mind like it's something from the Terminator or iRobot, where it's AI is supposed to be sentient. It's not necessarily that. It's something that is supposed to be tricked into thinking it's a human because it can do what we can do. But it's not necessarily something that's going to come and realize, that we're the enemy or something like that. That's kind of the image a lot of people may have in their mind. But it does have a lot of practical applications. And it's not outside of the realm of possibility that AI could be a problem down the road, but we're definitely very far from that, specifically with what we're discussing today with ChatGPT.
Absolutely. So ChatGPT is specifically a generative AI that generates content in response to a prompt. So one thing I really want to talk about is people might be familiar with chatbots, which is a type of AI that's been around for quite a long time. So I just wanted to talk about what the difference is between ChatGPT versus a chatbot itself. So ChatGPT uses deep learning techniques to generate human-like responses. It's trained on text-based data from the internet, which allows it to understand and produce natural language responses, which I think kind of goes back to what you were saying about people thinking it's this sentient thing. It really is learning from humans.
Yeah, because it puts the generative aspect of that AI puts things in context, because different words could have the same word could have different meanings, but a kind of one-dimensional chat bot might not know that context for it. You say, oh, you have a point. A chatbot could think you're talking about a pencil point or something like that, whereas a generative AI will learn that kind of context through data input to determine that you mean argument, that kind of.
So chatbots are kind of pulling from a bank of information that's already produced. So when you see that, let's say you're dealing with a business and a chatbot pops up, it's pulling from information that someone from that business has used to answer questions about their business.
Yeah, it's pre-programmed. With the chatbot, there's a template that they use. So they only input X amount of responses to specific prompts that are put in. A lot of people do use those chatbots. They're there as an assistant, 24-hour assistant on a lot of websites. And, I can understand why people get frustrated and I want to talk to a real person, because these chatbots may not help them for what they need. But it is good for really quick. You just need to know one specific kind of straightforward answer, and it'll spit it back out you because it's a frequently asked question, that kind of type of thing. So chatbots do serve a purpose, but they are very limited in what they can do.
Right, where ChatGPT will pull from a huge resource of already out there content.
Yes.
To answer questions like a human, and it can learn. So if chatbot gives you what you consider to be incorrect information, you can say, no, that's incorrect. This is the real information, and it will change its response later on. It learns. It goes.
It works based on feedback. The more information you give that generative AI, like ChatGPT, the better the information that comes out the next time will be. Because it's that deep learning. It adapts, and based on the thousands or millions of words in its database, how it analyzes everything, and if you are inputting more information, it puts that into the context of what kind of information that should be popping out next time.
Right. So now I want to jump into more how ChatGPT can be used in libraries itself. Where do you think it will fall into as far as uses?
In the most general sense, I do see it as a reference service, where people are just seeking information in general, almost like I don't want to say replacement, but like another kind of Google, where they're looking for something, so they type it in, and the ChatGPT can develop an in-context answer for them based on whatever database it pulls its information from. So ChatGPT has its own database. And any other kind of AI generative program could have their own separate databases. That all depends on the programmer, the developer, the company that owns said chat provider service. I could see in the future, I'm not going to say right now, but in the future, it could be an alternative chat service as opposed to using real people behind a computer for seeking information. Because we've talked about how it's learning, it's not 100% reliable, and until you kind of get that guarantee, it is best to use people for those kind of real world consequences if you're looking for information. But if you're just kind of just looking for things just to kind of shoot the breeze, ChatGPT is definitely like a thing to use, depending on where it gets its information.
Right, and I can see the appeal too, because obviously when you're using like a search engine like Google, you still have to take the time to go through all the different options that pops up rather than just getting an answer immediately.
Yes. Well, like we're even talking about Google, like I got this question when I was going to become a librarian in school. I have people say, why do libraries exist when Google exists? For that very purpose, because there is information out there that may not be the information you need, and libraries and librarians are institutions and people trained specifically for this kind of information-seeking behavior. We're there to filter it for you.
Absolutely.
And ChatGPT will fall under that umbrella of helping filter that information.
Just from a librarian perspective, I was thinking of a use such as, it is something that people are using to try and get creative ideas from. So displaying, maybe program ideas, I think it could have a use there.
I could see that, at least from a collaborative basis,
Yes.
because, one library may not be doing something that another library is. And if it's like some kind of conglomerate or collaboration where their information is then put there and you put in ideas, it could be a focal point for people to kind of pull ideas from other people that they might not even know that you needed that idea. Right. Yeah, I think that could be great for as a as a professional use as opposed to a patron use.
Right.
On that side of using ChatGPT.
And then just kind of going back to how it can benefit patrons, it is something that would be available 24/7, so it's not reliant on when the library is open itself. It can do like translations. It can do other languages. Yeah,
that actually is a huge kind of thing for specifically like ChatGPT and stuff like that, is that the language model it does do like translation services, and once again it puts that context into place when translated. Like you use Google Translate, it will literally translate the words as literal as possible, whereas something like ChatGPT could provide a more human translation, if you're just looking for something straight up to translate.
Right. So now I wanted to go more into the cons of it, and how that it relates specifically to the library. Cons for that.
For cons, honestly, just straight off the bat is reliability.
Yeah.
Everything is flawed, but as of right now, just based on my own use and what information is out there, it's still, this kind of technology is still in its infancy. It's not something I would 100% trust with, like I've said before, like life and death kind of things. If you're just casually looking for information, absolutely. I typically would see ChatGPT used for more academic or research purposes. And like it's still a kind of a learning mechanism for itself. So that's like the big con, is that it could still give you incorrect information, and you may not know better that it's incorrect. So it could literally give you incorrect information without you even knowing. That I think is probably the huge con at the moment. So in the future, that could not be an issue. But as of now, that's something, for a librarian in a library, it's a big no-no, is we do not want to give incorrect information at all.
Absolutely. And this goes into like information literacy. That's a big thing for libraries and librarians, is to make sure we're educating the public on how to properly research for things and to not fall into misinformation and stuff like that. And as of right now, I would say that has been shown to be a big problem. ChatGPT will give incorrect information as if they are correct.
Yes.
So you have to be willing to question and just be aware that not all the answers you're getting might be the right answer. And as well, I think what they've been seeing pop up too is that, one, either they will give no resource for the information they're giving you, or two, they're even giving fake resources sometimes.
Like it's generating its own kind of resource for it. So that's part of that reliability, because it does pull its information from somewhere, but the way it crafts it, it's one of the big hot topics with generative AI is in the academic world, and it deals with like plagiarism, because people can just put in prompts. They have a paper to write, they put in prompts, and it'll generate a paper for them. The issue with that is papers typically in an academic setting do need to be sourced, and ChatGPT doesn't necessarily do that, or if it does it, it could do it incorrectly. So that definitely is a big issue, and it's just a matter of how much the technology could improve for it.
Right, yeah, I was going to mention that as a con as well, just how it pulls from sources that technically might be copyrighted, but it's not making that distinction in any way, or it's not crediting that source.
Yeah, it doesn't provide in-text quotations, it just provides text.
Right, and I can only assume that's something that they're gearing towards fixing, because that can be a liability.
I'm sure, but talking about liabilities, it's you use that chat AI however you want. The company doesn't set out, because it's owned by a specific company. It's OpenAI is the company that owns ChatGPT and runs it. I'm sure they've covered their bases with it. Like, you use it, that's on you. They're not making any guarantees about anything, especially with the free service. Because they do have like a subscription, like a paid one, that's more advanced and has more of a database to pull from. But even going back to that, just the fact of what database the ChatGPT has access to, that itself could be restricting for using it for certain things.
Right.
Because it depends on who makes it, who's putting these language models in, what information it has access to. It could just, the terms for it could only cover X amount of just the dictionary. Just think of that. It may not include every single word in every single dictionary in every single language. So there is a level of restrictiveness and bias, because it's whoever decides to put what they want to put into it. So there's always a human factor with that.
Absolutely. Now, when talking with liability, I want to talk about regulating it. Is there any regulations that you would like to see happen with it? I know that's come up recently, in the news and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways you can look at regulation, and it's there's nipping it in the bud in terms of regulating its development and what people are allowed to develop AI for. And then there is regulating its use in terms of what people can use the AI. So they can go crazy in terms of what it's capable of, and it can be capable of everything and anything, but you can't use it for X, Y, Z. I think it's definitely going to, when you look at it's going to have to be something like very local. When a school's going to have a policy on you're not allowed to use chat AI, that kind of thing,
right.
For any of their assignments. I can't see a government coming in and saying who can and can't use this for whatever purpose. I could see it in terms of how the government regulates its development, though, because that's on more of the business side, and I think that's kind of how they could best protect people's interests is, and this is talking about extremes, because you don't want things 100% automated, especially if you somehow lose control of it. Whether there's security concerns, if it has access to sensitive information and someone doesn't have control over it,
right.
It could potentially leak it. It could become a liability in and of itself.
Right. And that speaks to, so as librarians, we uphold the right to privacy. So if we adopted ChatGPT as a resource for people, right now, I'm pretty sure that data is just out there. Like whatever you're typing into it, the information you put in to create the account, I'm pretty sure that's not protected.
Yeah, because you have to make an account to use ChatGPT. And then, when it comes more readily mainstream and available, there could be workarounds with like institution logins and such. But you're right, that information that you put in, I don't know where it goes. I don't know if they store it. I don't know if they keep records of it. A lot of tech companies do hold on to your data that you put in. I can't imagine that they wouldn't keep it. And it's just kind of a matter of them, it's on the responsibility of you as a user to understand that whether or not your information is going to be secure or not. So you kind of have to make that decision yourself, unless you get some kind of guarantee from the library
right.
or the owners of ChatGPT that your information is secure, like a bank or something like that, where they have to notify you if there's been a breach. Whereas as of now, your information could just literally be sold to someone and they have all your information, depending on what you type in. I don't know what people use it for,
right.
what they want to use it for, but there's always that risk.
Right, and I wonder then if libraries have to think about changing their policies. Like if we did take ChatGPT on, would we have to put a disclaimer that any search that you do in it could be open for like a leak or anything like that? Would we count it out altogether? Like would that be a consideration of not using it in the libraries?
I do think a disclaimer for everything is kind of the norm, like a disclaimer or just like a warning, any kind of thing that we don't have responsibility. We have public computers. Whatever people do on those computers is what they do on the computers. It'll be the same thing that using a ChatGPT, any kind of thing. Anything you type in, if it's unsecured, you just have to be knowledgeable in that it can be used. Libraries are going to have to make their own decisions, whether they want to allow something and just let the patrons know that their information could be leaked, so use at your own risk kind of situation,
right.
Or if they just want to be proactive and say, this isn't necessarily secure, we never got any guarantees, so we're not even going to let you kind of make that decision. We're just
right.
not going to have it at all, so we don't have any issues going forward. I think that's something that they're going to have to make
right.
on their own.
And ChatGPT does have its own disclaimer and user policy when you sign up. So I guess what I would recommend to anyone out there considering using it is just read that if you're worried at all about what you're searching being public to someone. Now, one thing I want to talk about is whenever big technology starts getting thrown around, the question is how will it affect jobs? So what effect would you say this could have on library jobs?
With new technology, automation is always kind of like a buzzword. It does scare a lot of people. We've seen it with manufacturing. We're not screwing on toothpaste caps anymore. It's a machine that does it. I feel like in libraries specifically, I don't foresee just flat out jobs being cut. I do see that there could be potential for a reduction in responsibilities, perhaps a consolidation of jobs. Like we were talking about, like what these could be used in a library for. And it could you may not need to spend as many hours staffing a chat service on the computer or
Right.
something like that. So someone would be able to shift their focus to another part of the job. It could add up to be this we don't need 7 people working in this specific job. We only need 5 now because we have a product that kind of a digital counterpart. That's kind of where I could see it going in the future. Like I said, I don't see it now. I don't see it even in the immediate future, but it could be something that does affect certain reference services at a library.
Yes, and I agree. It's definitely not something that's going to be immediate. Right now, ChatGPT can't even seem to do real-time responses. It can't even answer something as simple as what time does the library open. So yeah, it's definitely not at a place now where it would do any type of replacing of anything.
No.
And I also want people to remember too is that a library offers a lot of services, and a lot of them are in person.
Yes.
ChatGPT doesn't give you internet use, which the library does. It doesn't give you programming. It doesn't give you physical books.
No.
Those are all stuff we provide.
That's what I'll say is that the day that there is no longer a physical library is the day that there's no longer a physical library job.
Right.
There's always going to have to be someone in a building helping you. Some people, and it depends on who you're serving. Just as who would actually use ChatGPT services. Some people just shun technology altogether, or this is advanced technology, and not everyone is going to be able to pick up on it. We are going to have to be there as intermediaries, perhaps. So I feel like there's always going to be a need for us.
Yes, I mean, as we know, we still have people that are trying to learn search engines and Google and just how to use the computer in general. So certainly more advanced technology, people are going to have questions about it. And yeah, you need someone there to kind of teach them and to navigate those waters. So that's where libraries can come in as well.
Yeah, just for another example of kind of not necessarily a job reduction, but a duty kind of shrinkage is, when they used to have physical card catalogs. Like that would be someone's job, is to go there, part of their day is they would go and reorganize the card catalog. Now we have, a digital catalog on a computer. So someone's not even dealing with the card catalog anymore. So now their focus on, certain times of the day or times of the week can be done somewhere else. And that's all it is. It's a matter of shifting priorities and shifting duties.
Always adapting.
That's exactly what it is. We adapt.
All right. So now I want to talk about your experience using ChatGPT.
Yeah, so I had heard about it for a while. I kind of heard it through my friends and, just through the media, on TV shows, making fun of it, talking about it. And when I found out it was free to just sign up and use, I did make an account. And I started using it just to kind of ask it questions, just to test it and to see how human it was in its responses. Because I've used chat bots before, and it's just kind of like a circle, like a loop that you can go in, whereas ChatGPT is not. I would ask it trivia questions. I would just say, test me on something, and it would shoot me a bunch of questions. Or I would ask it questions, and it would come up with very detailed responses. And then came the real fun when it was time to give it prompts to write stories.
Yes.
That was kind of my favorite thing, because then it became a thing with my friends where we would just input prompts and then have it write these absolutely ridiculous stories.
Were they good?
They were funny. They were, good is a matter of perspective, but they were funny, and just seeing our names and our traits and qualities and stuff play out in this imaginary hypothetical. But that's how I've used it, and that my experience, and that's all it really is for me, is recreational. It's just kind of something to have fun with.
Yeah. So I've used it a little bit too, and I specifically geared all my questions to reference questions to kind of try it out as if I was a patron of the library.
Okay.
So as I mentioned before, at this point it can't really do real-time answers, and it will tell you that when you put in a question that requires that. So what time is the library open? What programs does it offer? It can't really answer any of that right now. And then it's also important to remember that it only has data and information leading up to 2021.
So it's behind.
Yes.
It is behind on certain things, and yeah, that's definitely part of it in terms of how restricted it is, at least at the moment.
Yes. But I will say what it did well is like it can answer questions like what's the difference between fiction and nonfiction, what is the Dewey Decimal System, and it did like a really detailed breakdown of that. You can say, you know, what section of the Dewey Decimal System are cookbooks in, and it'll give you that answer. I also asked for some community resources. For example, you know, we've got a lot of people coming in trying to do their reemployment and food stamps and everything like that. So I asked, you know, where can I find those resources within the community? And it was kind of a mix between being restrictive, but also giving an answer. It can't really give specifics, but it'll give generals like, you know, you can contact DCF, you can contact a local like community resource center. You still have to kind of do that.
It gives you a jumping off point,
Yeah,
though.
it gives you a jumping
so
off point.
you just have to do more research on your own,
Right.
as opposed to, you know, so a patron could just ask those questions, and it's like, okay, I got to call this agency,
Right.
you know, because you may not know what agency you have to call
Exactly.
for a specific issue.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
could see that.
there were some stuff that I felt it did do well, and then there was others where, yeah, it does need to become more refined, or maybe once it can kind of integrate with the library itself.
That's the key.
Yeah.
That is the key, is because the information, even though we talked about the difference between chatbots and ChatGPT, chatbots are pre-programmed. They are good in those kinds of questions as long as you have someone going back to make sure that they're accurate. What time does the library open? You can have a chatbot already have open 9 to 5 on
Right.
Fridays, you know, that kind of thing. Whereas ChatGPT needs access to a database
Right.
that's constantly updated. You know, that information has to be constantly updated. Having a database that's, you know, over 2 years old with no updates is going to be a problem in that kind of regard. So,
Absolutely. But, you know, I think at this point it's just a waiting game.
it is.
Yeah,
It
a
is.
waiting game to see where it goes, how it develops, and if it's something that we actually want to consider using. Do you think libraries will start using it?
They can. You know, I could see certain libraries do it. Like I said, I could see like academic libraries maybe adopting it first. Corporate, you know, like corporate information professionals may, you know, be kind of the first on that with their own systems, and then it kind of becomes available mainstream. You know, that's kind of what all these companies like Google, Amazon, they have their own ChatGPT type programs.
Right.
For their own use. It's just a matter of it becoming available to the public for our own use, for whatever use they may cater it towards us. You know, ChatGPT right now does have a free version.
Right.
You know, they could have a subscription version. You know, they could get rid of that. And, you know, if you want the up-to-date stuff, it could be a subscription, and the library would have to choose to pay for it if they wanted to use it.
Right. And then that could be a barrier because not every
Yeah.
library might be able to afford that.
No. Libraries have to prioritize where they spend their money. You know, our library has a very robust print budget, like, you know, in terms of getting physical materials into the library. Whereas my old library system kind of emphasized the electronic and media aspect of it, where that was the largest part of the budget. And it all just depends on the demographic you serve, and if they would get use out of that product, and if its cost, you know, the cost benefit does weigh out.
Right. And what I was thinking of too, so chatbots have been around for a long time. Technically, I think the first one was in the 60s or 70s was when chatbots were first created, but I feel like not that many libraries use it. And I feel like I'm starting to see it more now, which is why I question, like, how long could it take for ChatGPT to really be integrated in?
I think that's more of a matter of users as opposed to, you know, what's available. You know, commonplace computers in general have only been around the last 2 decades. You know, they're saying chatbots have been around for 50 plus years. You know, it's just a matter of, you know, I've seen companies use chatbots all the time. as far as I can remember. It's something I typically ignore because it's, the information is there on a page somewhere. If you want it quick, that's a good way to get it if it's a straightforward answer.
Right. But half the time you want to talk to a person.
But you do, whether or not the information is, I know where to find the information, or you want to actually talk to a person because they don't have the information readily available.
Right.
I'm not really surprised that libraries don't have it because we do have people here that can just answer those questions. Library users tend to be older and less apt to technology, so they're less likely to log onto the website and use the chatbot service to ask basic questions when they can just pick up the phone and call us, or they know they're coming into the library so they can just ask someone that's at the library. I think it's just a matter of who uses, or what's the dominant use in the library if chatbots or any kind of technology is preferred for the patrons that in the community.
Yeah. So I guess to kind of just end off, I'll ask, is this something you're excited about? Do you want to see it in libraries?
I am, at least as a third-party observer, I would absolutely love to see what it becomes. I'm not necessarily interested in becoming a guinea pig for it, because I definitely need to know more information about it, especially to see how it develops. If I stay on top of it and just learning about it, then maybe I'll become more comfortable. Let's get it here and let's get it started. Because once again, it's going to be up to us, the information professionals at the libraries, to relay this information to the patrons and how to use instruction, kind of the filtration of it, how to actually use and get the most use out of it. So once I'm more comfortable with it, then I would be 100% comfortable kind of giving it to others to use. But I definitely would want to see, part of that learning process is me seeing other people and other libraries and how they institute it into their resources.
Right.
That's I'm definitely excited to see that because I just want to, it's kind of just like watching a movie.
Yeah.
Wow, how does it turn out?
Yeah, let someone else be the guinea pig, learn from them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited too. I'd like to see how it can streamline some of the job that we do, and maybe provide some patrons with quick access to information.
That's kind of our goal, is just to give them the information that they want as quickly as possible and satisfy them to the best of our ability,
Yeah.
with their questions.
Absolutely. So thank you, Robert, so much for joining me for our first podcast, and thank you to anyone listening, and I hope you join us next time on Circulating Conversations.
Thank you.